Alright, we're going to do something a little different today. Just kind of doing this off the cuff here. So, what I want to show off today is the kind of an evolution of the unorthodox config. This one is my version 4.0 B hybrid style. It is a mix between the more traditional, the more traditional controller that you would expect, with movement on the left stick and shoot on the right trigger, and alt fire or aim on the left trigger. But I used a lot of radial menus and some ideas from my unorthodox config, and if you're not familiar with that, go ahead and check that out. I have a card up in the top right corner you should be able to click on. The general idea here is that we move with the left, and it's a gyro only idea, just like with the unorthodox, but there's two levels of gyro. If you touch the right pad, you'll get the high gyro. I'm barely moving my controller at all. I can easily pull 180s. Let's see, if I start from here, 360, 720, 1080. 1080 is putting my hands in a bit of a bind. I would not suggest doing 4 complete turns, but if I need to do a quick 180, I got it. And as you can also see, touching the right pad not only activates the gyro, but pulls up my radial menu, which has things like interact, quick knife, or melee if a game supports it, and the reload button is swiped down. And I don't have to click these. As you can see on the view, I'm only sliding over to what I need. So if I fire a couple times, I slide down, I can reload. So one thing you'll need to train yourself on is how to keep your thumb centered on the pad. It is a very important skill for using this config. Now the other thing I do is, if I soft pull the left trigger, I will activate a much slower gyro. This sensitivity is probably half of my bigger one, and if I wanted to do a 180 sweep, I can't even do 360. So maybe half is, well, I have acceleration on my right pad too, so that's going to change that too. I think the sensitivity is about halfway though. And basically what you want to do is you want to hold right pad while you're navigating the map, and as soon as you get into combat, or you pull up or you want to enter your scopes, or basically anytime you need fine aiming, you just soft pull the left trigger. And it's going to actually override the right side. You can still keep your right thumb on the pad, but it's going to override the sensitivity. It's a mode shift, and it mode shifts the gyro, so it'll override it. So if you're soft aiming, say I have my lower sensitivity now, I can still swipe down the reload. There's also one more little trick here, and that is weapon swapping. Now I've kind of put the entire weapon selection on the right grip. In some games you can just tap the right grip and it will change over to something. In Titanfall, I actually have it switch between your primary and your Titan weapon. However, if you hold it, it'll bring up a menu, and your right pad radial menu will be replaced with a weapon wheel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You just pick what you need. But I also found out that a very easy way to switch between weapons in games that usually only have 2 weapons, or something in Counter-Strike where we have last used weapon, is hold right grip, and it modifies your shoot button. Now you're going to be changing weapons, so you can't shoot anyways. The whole point of pulling up this menu, so you're not actually losing any availability, any action availability here. So if you hold right trigger and just push if you hold the right grip and push left trigger, you're just going to cycle between your last 2 weapons. And that's an easy way. So if this gun runs out of ammo or whatever, and I need to switch real quick, I just hold the right grip and pull the trigger. And the final thing that I like in this config, and it's something I do in a lot of configs for first-person shooters, is that light pull is going to be a single click. And that's perfect for fully automatic weapons. You just pull the soft soft pull and you're good to go. But on full pull on the right trigger, I always end up putting turbo. First of all, it's kind of nice for keeping your spread down on guns that have a high spread. It kind of turns it into a slower a slower automatic weapon. But it's really interesting for semi-automatic weapons so that you can just go ahead and pull the trigger down without affecting your gyro. Because if I do the turbo mode, I can keep it pretty steady. But if I try to do the rapid fire softs, it messes with the camera a lot because you're putting a lot of pressure into the controller when you're pulling the trigger. So the less amount of times you have to pull a trigger, the better. So I use turbo mode for all semi-automatic weapons. As you can see, there's some influences based on traditional controls, which I showcased at the beginning, and then the heavy radial menu use and multiple radial menu use and dual gyro is definitely pulled from my unorthodox config. Now let's take a look at how this config works in a game that's a little more complex. Let's take a check at Destiny 2. A lot of the same principles apply, but we'll see how we can expand it a bit here. As you can already see in the radio menu, we have a few more options. In the bottom right, we have finishers. It's something new that was added when one of the expansion packs, I'm not sure which one it was. We also have up top, we have the class ability. We have grenade on the top left, and we have super on the top. My super bar is not full, so it won't activate. But the standards are still here. We have melee on left, we have interact on right, and we have reload on the bottom. Just like that. And then, of course, we still have fast movement and slow movement on right pad and left trigger. Now, like I said earlier, left trigger soft is going to be activate your aiming gyro, and full pull is going to be to actually aim down sights. And you're going to want to use a hold instead of a toggle on this, or at least that's what I would suggest. And then we still have the full automatic and then the turbo. On this game, I actually have the turbo turned down a little bit so that I can use fully automatic weapons with a lot more precision. And this one, when you hold right grip, it doesn't pull up a menu because there's only 3 weapons. So right grip plus right trigger is to cycle between your 2 primaries, just like using last used in Counter-Strike. And if you click it, it pulls out your heavy weaponry. Click the right grip. So the same kind of idea exists where you can cycle between 2 weapons with the right trigger on the mode shift. And then you have your right grip button, and your right grip can also pull up a radial if the game has more than 3 weapons. And that's, I think that's all the special... Oh, and then sprint on outer ring, which is not special to Destiny. It's kind of something you should use on any first-person shooter with the Steam controller. It just makes too much sense to me. So there's that. I'm putting the the Steam input link in the description if you would like to try this out. It's going to be for the skeleton, which is the baseline config, but I will also put the Destiny 2 one in since it's a lot more convoluted than the skeleton. The skeleton will work for pretty much any game. You might have to change the interact button from E to F or whatever the default is. Crouch might be wrong. Some games have it on control, some games have it on C. But every binding will be in the correct place. You just need to make sure that it matches the default binding for the game. And then from that point on, just fill in the right radial menu with what you need and modify the weapon selection ideas to what the game utilizes.